It is 1306, Florence, Italy. A man sits by candlelight in a city that has just exiled him under penalty of death. His name is Dante Alighieri, and he is writing a poem. He is not a theologian. He is not a prophet. He is a poet, brilliant, bitter, and furious at his political enemies. And in this poem, he is going to send them all to hell, literally. He will place them by name in specific circles of fire, writhing in specific torments. He will make their punishments fit their crimes with vivid theatrical precision. The poem will be called The Inferno, and it will spread across Christendom like wildfire. Painters will illustrate it, theologians will quote it, priests will preach it, and for 700 years, right up until today, millions of people will picture hell exactly the way Dante painted it. Circles of fire, demons with pitchforks, eternal screaming, forever. Here is what almost no one asks. Almost no one stops to ask. Did Dante get this from the Bible? Did the Bible actually say that? Or did a brilliant exiled poet write the doctrine and the church just adopted it?
Because here is what I need to show you. The word hell appears in most of your English Bibles, but that single English word, those 4 letters, is translating 4 completely different words from the original Hebrew and Greek. 4 words that do not mean the same thing. 4 words that, when you read them in their original contexts, tell a story that is far more complex, far more layered, and far more honest than anything Dante ever wrote. We are going to go through every single one of them, word for word, verse by verse. No skipping, no softening. The Bible, exactly as it was written. Let us start at the beginning. Sheol, the Hebrew underworld. The Hebrew word is Sheol. Shin, Aleph, Vav, Lamed. Sheol. This is the word the Old Testament uses over and over again for the place the dead go. It appears 65 times in the Hebrew scriptures. 65 times. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. Sheol is not a place for the wicked. Sheol is the place for the dead. All of the dead. Righteous and unrighteous alike. Jacob, the patriarch, the father of the 12 tribes, when he believes his son Joseph has been killed, he says in Genesis 37:35, I shall go down to Sheol mourning. That is the King James Bible right there. Jacob is going to Sheol. Jacob, the man who wrestled with God, the man God renamed Israel.
King David, a man after God's own heart, writes in Psalm 16:10, For you will not leave my soul in Sheol. He is not saying he fears being sent there as punishment. He is describing it as the natural destination of every mortal soul and expressing trust that God will not leave him there. Job, in the depths of his suffering, actually cries out for Sheol. Job 14:13. He says, Oh, that you would hide me in Sheol. He is asking to go there because it seems like rest, peace, silence. Let me show you something hiding in plain sight. In many of your English Bibles, King James, New King James, older translations, the translators made a choice. When Sheol appeared in a context they considered positive or neutral, they translated it as grave. When it appeared in a context they considered negative, they translated it as hell. Same Hebrew word, 2 different English translations, based not on the original language, but on the translator's theology. That is not a footnote. That is a foundational problem with how most people have read their Bible. Sheol, in Hebrew thought, is the realm of the dead. It is below the earth. It is dark and silent. Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, There is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, where you are going. That is not eternal conscious torment. That is unconsciousness, sleep, darkness. The Hebrew understanding of death is not fire. It is silence.
Now, move forward in time. 500 years before Jesus, the Hebrew scriptures have been translated into Greek. That translation is called the Septuagint. and the translators face a decision. What do we do with the word Sheol? They choose the Greek word Hades, and that choice will carry enormous consequences into the New Testament. Hades, the Greek realm of the dead. Hades, in Greek mythology, which predates the New Testament by centuries, Hades is both a place and a god. It is the underworld, the realm of the dead. The Greeks, like the Hebrews, believed that the dead descended into a shadowy subterranean world, not a place of torture for the wicked, a place of shadows for everyone. Now, the New Testament writers, Jewish men who grew up reading the Septuagint, reach for this word when they need to describe where the dead go. And here is the detail that rewrites everything you thought you knew. Acts 2:27. Peter is preaching on the day of Pentecost. He is quoting from Psalm 16, the same psalm where David said God would not leave his soul in Sheol. And Peter quotes it in Greek. He says, "You will not abandon my soul to Hades, nor let your Holy One see corruption."
Who is Peter talking about? He is talking about Jesus. He says explicitly in the very next verses that David was prophesying about the resurrection of the Messiah, that Jesus went to Hades, that God did not leave him there. That is the gospel, according to Peter, in the original Greek. Jesus went to Hades. The word your English Bible sometimes translates as hell. Jesus was there. Between Good Friday and Easter morning, the Son of God was in Hades. Is that what you picture when someone says hell? Because if it is, we have a serious translation problem. Hades appears 10 times in the New Testament. In Revelation 20:13-14, Hades itself is thrown into the lake of fire. Hades is not the final destination. Hades is a temporary state, a waiting place. Not eternal, not final. And then it ends. Revelation 20:14, and death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. Hades is destroyed. Whatever Hades is, it does not last forever. But here is what most people miss. Jesus did not use the word Hades in his most famous teachings about the fate of the wicked. He used a completely different word, a word that many Bible teachers do not know or do not explain, a word that has a specific, historical, geographic location you can still visit today. That word is Gehenna. Gehenna, the Valley of Hinnom.
South of Jerusalem, just outside the city wall, there is a narrow valley. Today it is a quiet park. Tourists walk through it without knowing what they are standing in. Its name in Hebrew is Gehinnom, the Valley of Hinnom. In Greek, it becomes Gehenna. In the 7th century BC, this valley had a terrible history. 2 Kings 23:10 tells us that children were burned there as sacrifices to the god Molech. The prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 7, called it the Valley of Slaughter and promised it would be filled with the bodies of those who defied God. It became the most cursed piece of land in Israel's memory. By the time of Jesus, 1st century Jerusalem used this valley as a garbage dump. The fires burned continuously. The bodies of criminals and animals were thrown there. Maggots, worms infested the waste. It was the most visceral image of disgrace, decay, and destruction a Jewish listener in the 1st century could imagine. And Jesus chose this word deliberately. Gehenna appears 12 times in the New Testament. 11 of those times, the word comes from the lips of Jesus himself. When Jesus warns about the fate of the unrighteous, he says Gehenna, not Hades, not Sheol, not lake of fire. Gehenna. Matthew 5:22, Matthew 5:29-30, Matthew 10:28, Matthew 18:9, Mark 9:43-48. Jesus is using a real place, a place every person in that crowd had seen, a place that smelled of smoke and rot. He is not painting an abstract theological netherworld. He is pointing south. He is saying that valley, the place of disgrace, the place of utter destruction and waste. And here is what you need to understand about the imagery. Mark 9:48 quotes Jesus using the phrase, "where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched." This is a direct quotation from Isaiah 66:24. And in Isaiah 66:24, the prophet is describing corpses, dead bodies, not living souls in conscious agony, dead bodies being consumed by worms and fire. The image is of total destruction, not of eternal preservation and torment. That is not a minor interpretive difference. That is a completely different picture of what happens to the wicked. Now, let me pause here for one moment. If this is opening something up in Scripture you have not seen before, the kind of study where you keep pulling a thread and the whole pattern changes, please subscribe right now. Leave a comment, even one word. Share this with a friend who has ever wondered about this. That is how more people find this content, and that is how we keep making it. Thank you. Now, let us keep going.
Because we still have two more words to examine. One of them appears only once in the entire Bible, used by the Apostle Peter, and it comes straight from Greek mythology. And the other, the lake of fire, is the most dramatic image in all of Scripture, and almost everyone has it wrong. Tartarus and the lake of fire. 2 Peter 2:4. Most English Bibles translate it, "For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell." That word, hell, is translating the Greek word tartaro, a verb, the only time this word appears in all of Scripture. Tartarus. In Greek mythology, this is the deepest abyss below Hades, the place where the Titans, the primordial rebellious gods, were imprisoned after their defeat. It is below even Hades. A prison, not a realm of conscious suffering. A place of confinement for supernatural beings who rebelled against divine order. Peter borrows this word from Greek mythology and uses it specifically for fallen angels. Not humans, not unbelievers. Fallen angels in a state of confinement, awaiting judgment. He does not use it for human beings. He uses it once for a specific group, for a specific purpose. And yet English Bibles translate it hell. Same translation as Sheol. Same translation as Hades. Same translation as Gehenna. 4 different words, 1 English translation. And every reader assumes they are reading about the same place. They are not reading about the same place. They were never the same place. Now, the lake of fire. This is the image that looms over all of Christian imagination of the afterlife. It comes exclusively from the book of Revelation. And Revelation is, without question, the most heavily symbolic book in all of Scripture. The whole book is filled with beasts, numbers, sealed scrolls, horsemen, a woman clothed with the sun. It is apocalyptic literature, a genre that Jewish readers of the first century understood as symbolic, political, and visionary, a genre that spoke in images, not newspaper reports. The lake of fire appears in Revelation 19:20, 20:10, 20:14 through 15, and 21:8. In Revelation 20:14, Death and Hades are thrown into the lake of fire. Death is thrown in. Death does not experience conscious torment. Death ends. The image is a final termination. In Revelation 20:10, the beast and the false prophet are said to be tormented forever and ever. That phrase, in Greek, eis tous aiones ton aionen, literally means unto the ages of the ages. It is Revelation's most extreme expression of duration. But the same phrase is used in Revelation 4:9 for God living forever and ever, and in Revelation 5:13 for worship going on forever and ever. The phrase is an expression of ultimacy, not necessarily a literal clock of endless time. And Revelation 21:8, the passage most often quoted about the lake of fire, says, "Their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur," which is the second death. The second death. Not the second prison sentence. Not the second round of conscious agony. The second death. Death again. The end of existence. The entire arc of Scripture, from Sheol in Genesis to the lake of fire in Revelation, tells a consistent story. The wicked do not live forever in fire. They perish. They are destroyed. They face the second death. The righteous receive life everlasting.
The wicked receive the second death. These are not equivalent fates with different emotional qualities. They are opposite fates. Life versus death. Existence versus destruction. What the three main views actually say. Let me give you the honest theological map here, because this is where serious Christians disagree, and you deserve to know where the lines are. Three main positions exist within Christianity on the final fate of the wicked. The first is eternal conscious torment, the traditional view. The damned exist forever in a state of conscious suffering. This is Dante's view. This is the view of Augustine, Aquinas, Jonathan Edwards. It reads the forever and ever language of Revelation literally, and the Gehenna language as describing an eternal condition, not a place of destruction.
The second is annihilationism, also called conditional immortality. The wicked are judged and then cease to exist. They receive the second death, complete and final destruction. This is the position held by many Adventists, many in the broader Restoration movement, and by serious evangelical scholars, including John Stott and Edward Fudge. It reads Gehenna and the lake of fire as images of total destruction, not eternal preservation. The third is universal reconciliation. Eventually, all are restored. God's love wins. The fire is purifying, not punishing. This is a minority view, with ancient roots in Origen and more recently in theologians like Thomas Talbot and David Bentley Hart. It reads all things language in Paul very seriously. I am not here to tell you which of these is correct. What I am here to tell you is that the word hell in your English Bible is not a window into this debate. It is a curtain drawn over it. The original language opens the curtain, and what is behind it is a far richer, far more honest, far more serious theological conversation than most pulpits have ever had. Let me bring you back to Florence, 1306. Dante, candle burning low. He was a genius, genuinely one of the greatest writers in human history. The Inferno is a masterpiece of literature. I am not dismissing him.
But Dante wrote from rage. He wrote from exile. He wrote to punish his enemies with the most terrifying image his imagination could produce. And the church, over centuries, folded that imagination into its doctrine of the afterlife. The Bible does not describe what Dante described. The Bible describes Sheol, the silent realm of the dead. Hades, the temporary waiting place which will itself be destroyed. Gehenna, the valley of disgrace and fire where dead bodies are consumed, not souls preserved. Tartarus, a mythological prison for rebellious angels. And the lake of fire, the second death, the final end. These are not the same thing as Dante's Inferno. They are not circles. They are not demons with pitchforks. They are not eternal screaming. What they are is something God takes far more seriously and far more honestly than a poet's revenge fantasy. What they are is justice. What they are is real. What you believe about the fate of the wicked shapes everything you believe about God's character. And God's character, as revealed in Scripture, in all its complexity and weight and mercy, is not a doctrine you should inherit from a medieval poet. Read the words, in their original languages, in their original contexts. They will surprise you. They surprised me.
If this opens something up in Scripture that you had not seen before, the most helpful thing you can do is subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps other people find this content. Share it with someone who has ever been afraid of hell, or who has ever used hell as a reason to walk away from God. And please keep us in your prayers. God bless you.